Jai Baba. God alone is real, and since we are permanently lodged in the Divine Beloved, we are all one. Meher Baba. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Thanks to Beloved Baba, Jai Baba to all of you. We have reached the 33rd session of reading God Speaks. We are reading from page number
51.
151. 51, sorry, 151. All right, go ahead.
The then existing and functioning five perfect masters at the appropriate time of the avataric period, individually and conjointly, bring about the advent of the avatar and exercising their infinite mercy and love for all in ignorance, living the illusory life in creation, use their infinite power and grace to precipitate this advent and make manifest the infinite reality of the eternal, infinite God consciousness in the beyond state onto this earth into illusion. And they bestow, through their infinite power, knowledge, and bliss, onto the reality a most suitable cloak of illusion in the shape of a human male form, so that the divinity of the reality may be made most presentable in the world of illusion.
So Baba says that I never come of my own accord. It is the five perfect masters of the 10 perfect masters who are living there and functioning in the 11th age of the cycle, which is the end of the cycle, that they precipitate the advent of the avatar. So that is what the paragraph is saying, that they conjointly and individually, in a sense, they converge at a place, the location around that area where the avatar is to be born. They take care of the minutest aspects of the avatar's birth and his growth and upbringing, and then at the appointed time, one of them removes the veil which they have put onto the avatar, and then the avatar gradually goes and takes charge from the other perfect masters and then starts his own avataric mission. So that's how it happens all the time.
We have a supplement on page 257, supplement number 33.
Supplement 33, 257. Good.
Advent of God as avatar. The universe has come out of God. God has not come out of the universe. Illusion has come out of reality. Reality has not come out of illusion. God alone is real. The universe by itself is illusion.
The universe by itself is illusion. The universe has a very important role to play in the entire divine Leela, which is known as the creation. We have done this earlier, that the universe is a spiritual incubator in which the consciousness of the soul gradually evolves, incubates, gradually evolves, and then involves, and then matures. So, although it is an illusion, it plays a very important and very vital role. We just can't throw it out and say, oh, this is just an illusion. It has a purpose in the divine scheme of things.
God's life lived in illusion as the avatar and as perfect masters is not illusory.
That means because we are not experiencing reality, so our life in illusion is illusory. But because the perfect masters and the avatar have already reached the state of reality, of perfection, of unity, of oneness, Advaita, although they are living the life in the illusory world, their life is not an illusion, because they have already achieved the truth or the reality or the self or the unity.
Whereas God's life lived in creation as all animate and inanimate beings is both real and illusory.
So it is God who plays the role of a stone, metal, mineral, vegetable, etc., etc. So, insofar as the God aspect is concerned, He is there, but we are not realized God. So Baba says that that life is both real as well as illusory.
Illusion, illusory life, and God's life in illusion are not and cannot be one and the same. Illusion has no life and can have no life. Illusion is illusion and is nothing by itself. Illusory life means life in illusion, with illusion surrounded by illusion, and though it is life as experienced by the soul in creation, it is illusory life. But God's life lived in illusion is not illusory because, in spite of living the illusory life, God remains conscious of his own reality.
We've seen that.
God is absolutely independent and the universe is entirely dependent upon God. Yet, when the perfect masters effect the descent of God on earth as the avatar, they make reality and illusion interdependent, each upon the other. And thus it is that His infinite mercy and unbounded love are eternally drawn upon by those who are immersed in illusion.
So when the advent takes place, the avatar makes use of the illusion to bring us out of illusion. Baba had given one example where a thorn is pricked in the leg of somebody and you use one thorn to remove the other thorn. So illusion, in a sense, becomes an aid in the hands of the perfect ones and the perfect master and the avatar to bring us out of illusion.
Between God and the universe, infinite mercy and unbounded love act as a prominent link which is eternally made use of by men who become God, Sadgurus, perfect masters or Kutubs, and by God who becomes man, Avatar, Christ or Rasul, and so the universe becomes the eternal playmate of God.
Baba had once said words to the effect, I know three things. One is that he is the avatar in every sense of the word, and the other one was again words to the effect that every action of his, every act of his, is nothing but an outcome of his infinite love for everyone and everything in creation. So it's an exchange here God between God and the universe. Infinite mercy and unbounded love act as a prominent link, which is eternally made use of by the perfect master, by the perfect ones, perfect masters, and the avatar. So every act of the avatar, howsoever insignificant it may appear to be, what it sprouts from, it springs from nothing but infinite love for everyone and everything in creation.
Through this prominent link, the avatar not only established life in his divine play, but also established law in illusion. And this law, being established by the God man or avatar, is the law of the lawless infinite, and it is eternally real and at the same time illusory. It is this law that governs the universe, all its ups and downs. Construction and devastation are guided by this law. At the cyclic period, God's independent absoluteness is made to work upon this law by the God man as God's will, and this means that anything and everything that the avatar wills is ordained by God.
A thought that first of all we must understand that at various levels of consciousness, various different laws operate. And one of the laws, a very prominent law in the domain of duality is, we can say, the law of karma. which is immaculate, which is perfect, which is absolutely flawless. So when we talk about God's will, this is my understanding, because Baba did say that my will is law, my wish governs the law, and my love sustains the universe. In my understanding, when we say this is God's will, not a leaf has the power to quiver or shake without my will. Baba says that. What does it mean in my limited understanding of things? It means that everything happens according to the law. Baba has established, as he says, a law. Same thing, as you sow, so shall you reap. You do good to others, good will come back to you. You harm others, harm will come back to you, and so on and so forth. So this law is equivalent to the will of God. The will of God does not, I'm just trying to elaborate, and I think this was the example given by Baba himself, that there is a kingdom in which there is a king and he has passed certain laws, various laws. Something like, if you murder somebody, that person will be hanged. Or if you steal, your hands will be chopped off. Or if you do some good things, you will be rewarded. Now that is the law which has been established by the king and it is operating throughout his kingdom. Now in some remote place, some remote small village, hamlet, whatever you call it, something of this sort happens, somebody steals and his, let's say, fingers or hands are chopped off. It is happening according to the will of the king, isn't it? So the will of the king operates through the laws which he has already put into action, put into place. And that could be the reason why many times when things happen like miracles, let's say, and Baba Lava would go to Baba and say, Baba, I'm so thankful to you, you saved my life, you saved this, you did that, So then Baba would say, tell me, I swear I haven't done anything for you. Tell me what exactly happened, and the person would narrate. So it's not that Baba is pretending. Of course, he is all knowledge, he can know anything if he wants to know. But he doesn't have to apply his mind on everything and everyone. It happens, everything happens automatically according to the will of God because the law has been established. In other words, that person must be deserving of the help of the avatar. And the moment he calls out for help, it is not he who is helping because the avatar has so many agents. They are visible agents, invisible agents, direct agents, indirect agents. So they would be doing the job for the avatar without even the avatar consciously knowing that this has happened according to his will. This is my little bit of Baba's will or God's will because many times, many people attribute God's will means Baba has willed it, means he wanted it to happen the way. No, according to me, it all automatically happens according to the law of karma. And that, according to me, is God's will. Any questions on this? Okay. Because this is a very tricky, what is God's will and what is God's wish. We are not going to get into that, Basically, everything happens according to God's will. It's something like, I generally narrate this episode. There's a murderer and he was sentenced, he was in jail and the hearing kept on going for many years as it always happens. And then the final verdict was supposed to be announced. And it generally the judge or the panel of judges would say, okay, do you have any last wish? Do you want to say something about this? Then he says, the murderer says, sir, do you believe in God? I say, yeah, of course I do believe in God. But have you ever heard this phrase that nothing happens except by the will of God? Yes, judge says, yes, I've heard it. Then you only think and imagine, how could I have murdered somebody if it was not God's will? So it is God's will, so how can I be punished for doing something which is God's will? So the judge lifts the hammer and, hang unto that thumb,
And how can you do that? The judge was very smart. He said, well, you say everything happens according to God's will. If God's will was that I should not be able to bring my hammer down,
down, he would have stopped my hand over here only. You see? So we try to misinterpret, this is what my feeling is, God's will. Everything happens according to the law. Little Johnny, small boy, he was playing in the window on the first floor and he fell down. Now, it is God's will because when he fell down, what is known as the law of gravity operates and he fell down, poor fellow. Fortunately, there was a little soft sand down. So when people rushed to him and said, Johnny, did the fall hurt you? He said, no, not the fall. It was the stopping of the fall that hurt me. As long as he was falling, there was no hurt at all. The fall stopped, and that is where it hurt. This is just on a lighter vein. What I'm trying to say or convey is there is a law. Everything happens according to the law, and in my limited understanding of things, God's will is equivalent to the law operational at your level of consciousness. Go ahead.
Thus, when infinite reality, that is God. Oh, sorry, page 152.
152.
52.
We are back
Sorry,
to 152. Bolo.
Thus, when infinite reality, that is God, manifests on earth in the form of a man and reveals his divinity to mankind, he is recognized as the avatar, the Messiah, the prophet. God thus becomes man. In this manner, infinite God, age after age, throughout all cycles, wills through his infinite mercy to effect his presence amidst mankind by stooping down to human levels in human form, but his physical presence amidst mankind not being apprehended, he is looked upon as an ordinary man of the world.
Not being apprehended, but not being recognized, pursued, acknowledged, etc.
When, however, he asserts his divinity on earth by proclaiming himself the avatar of the age, he is worshipped by some who accept him as God and glorified by a few who know him as God on earth. But it invariably falls to the lot of the rest of humanity to condemn him while he is physically in their midst. Thus it is that God as man, proclaiming himself as the avatar, suffers himself to be persecuted and tortured, to be humiliated and condemned by humanity, for whose sake his infinite love has made him stoop so low, in order that humanity, by the very act of condemning God's manifestation in the form of avatar, should, however indirectly, assert the existence of God in his infinite, eternal state of reality.
This is very beautifully said, that in the very act of condemning God in human form, the condemnation means that there is God, the formless God, the infinite. Indirectly, they are giving testimony to God. Once Baba had revealed this aspect of what we call as people who don't believe in God, they are atheist. So something to do with atheist. And Baba said, in a sense, everybody is an atheist. Because unless and until you experience God personally, in other words, unless and until you are God realized, you are simply believing or having faith in the existence of God. You do not know that there is God. You only believe, and belief is based on ignorance. I believe this, I have faith in this, but I don't have the actual experience of Godhood. So that is one thing. That means, in other words, everybody is an atheist unless you actually experience Godhood. On the other hand, Baba says, nobody is an atheist. Why? Because as long as you continue, these are Baba's words to the effect, as long as you continue to believe in your own existence, I exist, no doubt. As long as you continue to believe in your own existence, you are indirectly giving testimony to the existence of God, because Baba says God is existence, infinite and eternal. So as long as you are believing I exist, that means indirectly you are giving a testimony that God also exists, because there is nothing that can exist. In short, God is equal to existence. So if you think if I think I am existing, indirectly I am saying that God is. So that's how Baba had explained once.
Whose past is worshipped, whose present is whose past is worshipped, whose present.
Okay, okay. Soumya prompts me to say something. I don't know why doesn't she speak in the mic. I am the one, this had nothing to do with what we are reading, but I am the one whose past is worshipped and remembered, whose present is ignored and forgotten, and whose future advent is anticipated with great fervor and longing. So that is Baba is trying to say that this is the lot, this is the so-called destiny. Irony, no. Okay, this destiny of the avatar. Every time he comes, while he is still in our midst in the physical form, there are very, very, very few people who are able to recognize and accept him as the God-man, as the avatar. Now, since you say, something crossed my mind. Many people have asked this question. You say, that means I say or anybody says, that Meher Baba is God in human form. The same as Zarathustra, Ramakrishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad. And now Meher Baba. Okay. How come he is hardly known to anybody? Now, of course, as the years go by, I wouldn't call it manifestation, but his name is known more and more as the years go by. But how is it when you talk about Christ, or you talk about Rama, you talk about Krishna? I mean, 90% people would have heard that name and they know that such a person had existed in a human form. My answer to them has always been like this, that one can only compare the comparables. It is something like you have to be on the same, level in order to compare. Here you are comparing Avatar Meher Baba's physical ministry, which is, when he dropped his body, it's almost 56 years from the time he dropped his body. You are comparing him with Jesus the Christ, who is the same as Meher Baba, who lived 2100 years ago, 2100 years ago, or more than that, or with anybody else who lived 4000, 5000, 6000 years ago. So you have to be on the same playing ground. What is it called? Level playing ground. There you cannot compare Baba with the earlier advent. Actually, there is no reason to compare. We are not talking numbers here. But the idea is that people do not realize that Baba has just dropped his body 56, 57 years back. And in my, although I have not made any studies or research, in my limited understanding of things, after 56 years from Jesus dropping his body, that he did not drop his body on the cross is another matter. We are not going to discuss on that. How many followers were there? Or after Rama dropped his physical body, 56 years, 100 years. In other words, in my understanding, because of the scientific development of so many things which has come in the last 100, 150 years during the Avataric Advent, I would say that he has comparatively much more followers than what the other advents of his own advent, would have had during those times. I hope I'm making myself very clear. So there is no question of comparing in numbers. If you really compare in numbers, it should be a fair playing ground in terms of the number of years that have passed through after dropping of the body of the previous advent, same avatar, because just in the last session we did that the avatar is always one and the same because God is always one and the same. So it's not that they are different, it is the same one, the very first soul who made by himself, all by himself, because there was no master before him, and that is the one who is the one, that particular avataric soul keeps coming over and over again.
The avatar is always one and the same because God is always
Yeah, good.
one and the same, the eternal, indivisible, infinite one who manifests himself in the form of man as the avatar, as the Messiah, as the prophet, as the Buddha, as the ancient one, the highest of the high. This eternally one and the same avatar is made to repeat his manifestation from time to time in different cycles, adopting different names and different human forms in different places to reveal truth in different garbs and different languages in order to raise humanity from the pit of ignorance and help free it from the bondage of delusions. There's an asterisk. Meher Baba was asked whether a perfect master, after leaving the body, ever comes back to earth, that is, does he ever take birth again? Baba replied, no, never. Only the avatar takes birth again and again.
In the previous session we had done this, that it is the prerogative and I would say in a sense a headache for the avatar to keep coming over and over again. It is his responsibility, it is his job. And so the perfect masters never come back, and if somebody claims that he is the reincarnation of an XYZ perfect master, according to Meher Baba, it is an impossibility. Yeah, there's a question coming. नहीं समझो, नहीं समझो.
So, have you heard that Zarzari Bucks
Yeah.
Yes.
gave realization to
Yes.
Sai Baba?
Shirdi Sai Baba.
Siddhi Sai Baba, but Zarzari Bucks was not in his human form.
Correct.
So-
there are some exceptions. There are some exceptions. Yeah, because whom we have nomenclated as Shirdi Sai Baba was a disciple of Zarzari. Somewhere it is said Zarzari Zarbaksh in Kuldabad, and the destiny of Shirdi Sai Baba was to become a perfect master. Not only the Kutub, but even Kutub and Irshad. And at that time he could have been given perfection, but then that is why very, very rare cases where the masters who have already dropped their physical bodies. There's another master called Khizr. And when Baba was asked, how come there were no perfect masters in the West, in Europe? So how come Saint Francis of Assisi got realization? Because there was no master. So Baba explained that there is one, I don't know what you call it. You can say some energy, one, Khirz. So when a person is really ripe to receive perfection, and if there is no master to give that perfection to him, then that particular energy, whatever you call it, takes birth and gives the realization and then goes away.
Khizr.
And similarly for Narayan Maharaj, it was said that he did not have any living perfect master as said, and Dattatreya was dedicated to Dattatreya and then took form and gave the realization and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saint Francis, the master was like, he was a disciple of some master 1100 years before.
Okay.
And that master planned out his realization that time only, and in time he came back in form and gave him realization.
But
That's what I remember.
that unit, whatever you call it, I don't know how to. Khizr. Baba said this.
Khizr. Khizr.
Speak in the mic.
So sorry. So it was that sometimes when there is no perfect master, there is this office. That particular aspirant. Now, for example, if it's Narayan Maharaj or Saint Francis of Assisi, the time is ripe. So because there was no perfect master at that point in time, this from this office that
There's
execution
an embodiment,
happened, and-
realization, and then goes.
yeah,
But that person must have met some master in
Hun-
previous
Of course,
birth,
of
Certainly.
and that
course.
was
See,
planned that
past
time.
connections
Certainly.
have to be there. Without
Have
the
to be
past
there.
connection, nothing happens. Not necessarily immediate previous.
It can
could
be thousands.
several-
It can
yeah.
be 1,000 years before.
It could
also.
be
Yes.
several previous years also. Yeah.
Okay, one more thing that you were saying that a perfect master takes birth to give realization or to push. No.
Perfect masters never reincarnate. They never come back to life. Except these exceptions are there,
Yeah, yeah.
where maybe there is somebody very closely associated with that perfect master. And see, they are above law.
So
They are
that
an exception to everything. So they can do anything, but they normally follow the rule of the nature and do not create any exemptions. But they can if they wish to. So under the normal circumstances, perfect masters never reincarnate. That is what we just read. Baba said, no, it's
there
not
was
possible.
no reincarnation. It is a form that comes.
It just
because
comes, does whatever job it does,
because an
and then goes on.
aspirant relates to that form. So for the to make it easy for the aspirant to receive that grace, that particular office assumes that form to give realization.
Right. Any more questions? Sharing? Go ahead.
During the Avataric period, the one
From amongst.
from amongst the then living 5 perfect masters who used to function as Kutuba Irshad ceases to hold this divine office with the advent of the avatar and delivers his duty and charge of the sole responsibility for the affairs of the universe into the hands of the God-man as soon as he is able to assume his office as the Christ, the avatar of the age, and remains himself as long as he is in the gross body, holding the same office of Kutub as the other 4 hold.
So in other words, we have seen that there are 5 perfect masters at any given point in time. One of them becomes the Kutub-e Irshad, and during Baba's time it was Shirdi Sai Baba. And the moment the time was right and ripe for the avatar to take on his official duty, the avataric ministry, the Kutub-e Irshad hands over the charge to the avatar, and the Kutub-e Irshad now remains as a Kutub only, and the avatar, who is also called Sahib-e-Zaman, takes over the entire responsibility, functional responsibility of the total creation, entire creation.
In spite of the advent of the avatar, there must be 56 God realized ones in human body, and from amongst these 56, there must be the 5 perfect masters living on earth. When one from amongst these 5 perfect masters drops his physical body, the office is never left vacant. It is invariably filled by another living God realized one who has realized the eternal reality at the time. Hence, even when the avatar is on earth, there are 56 God realized ones, including the 5 perfect masters in human form, but the avatar becomes the sole authority.
The solo. In earlier session, we had done the spiritual hierarchy of 7,001 people. In that, we have seen how 56 God realized ones are always there, out of which in the hierarchy there are functional 5 plus 3, 8, and the 48 in a sense remain incognito, not incognito but as a sideline. And the moment one from among the functional authority drops the body, this one takes charge. So here we ended, okay. Now there is a chart, there's chart 7. Can we put on the chart 7? Mir Baba's explanation of chart 7 facing this page. Okay. Now there is a chart, there's chart 7. Can we put on the chart 7? Mir Baba's explanation of chart 7 facing this page.
Jai Baba.
Page 154.
Chart number 7.
With the energy from the subtle and the illumination from the mental spheres for trillions upon trillions of years in the past and in the future, the gross universe has been and will be will be forming and disintegrating into countless stars, suns, planets, worlds, moons, and meteors. Yet, in fact, there are no such things as time and space. Once the soul is freed of illusion, illusion does not merely cease to exist but is then found never to have existed at all.
So we cannot even imagine. Baba talks about millions and millions of years.
Trillions and trillions.
Trillions and trillions upon trillions of it is just beyond our ken, beyond our understanding, beyond our imagination. Suffice to say, everything that is happening in the state of divine dream. And when the dream is over, when real awakening takes place, the dream never was. I create people in my dream. I create things in my dream. But the moment I wake up, I realize that they are not there, they were never there, it was just an imagination. So Baba says that all these trillions upon trillions of years, time, space, suns, moons, planets, meteors, everything is an illusion, but we will get to know that as an illusion, as a dream, as a shadow, as a nothing into nothing, only when we finally wake up.
After a gradual evolution through the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms of the gross universe for a definite yet immeasurable period of millions, billions, and trillions of years, consciousness reaches perfection in man. Man then rightly ought to be God conscious, but does not become so because of the sanskaric bindings born of impressions of the illusory experiences gathered during the evolution of consciousness. Thus, man remains fully conscious only of the gross.
We have done all these things, so no need. But what strikes us here is Baba talks about immeasurable period of millions, billions, and trillions of years that we become man. And our consciousness is whole and complete. And truly we should have realized God, but we do not because of this mountain load of impressions or samskaras which need to be handled and balanced out through the process of reincarnation.
Before man's perfect but gross consciousness can evolve into the reality of God consciousness, it has first to evolve into subtle consciousness, and from the subtle
First you read.
Into
we'll
full
do the
mental
chart later on,
consciousness. For that, the gross impressions have to turn into the subtle, and from the subtle into the mental impressions, regaining in degree the faintness and fineness of earlier impressions as gathered in the vegetable and mineral forms, the fundamental difference being in consciousness.
In other words, the fundamental difference because all souls are one. There's no such thing as all soul, there's only one soul, which is the oversoul. So what Baba is trying to say, there is an apparent difference, and this difference is purely and only because of the difference in the samskaric makeup of that particular consciousness of the soul.
Unlike the definite course followed in the process of evolution, man as man can make use of his consciousness fully and freely. Therefore,
okay, please read it, sorry.
Therefore, the fully gross conscious man, according to the resultant tightening or loosening of his sanskaric bindings, can become fully subtle conscious and therefore fully mental
Thereafter.
and thereafter fully mental conscious, sometimes after a few and sometimes after numerous human reincarnations. Between each of the two involutions of his consciousness. And if one happens to be blessed with divine love from a lover of God, or if one has the guiding hand of a perfect master, the emancipation from all bindings, however great and complicated they may be, is achieved much more easily and quickly. In exceptional cases, an instantaneous emancipation is also possible without involving a single reincarnation.
So I think it was in the earlier session, last session only, that we did that. At one place, dichotomy you can say, Baba says exactly 84 lakhs reincarnation, and here Baba says that it is possible to shorten that period. So we are not going to debate on that, what is correct. So in other words, in the domain of illusion or shadow or dream or duality, anything can happen. There is a certain pattern, there is a certain rule, but there are always exceptions to all these rules. I would like to read this one, what should I say, this paragraph. Unlike the definite cause followed in the process of evolution, in my understanding, it means in the process of evolution of consciousness, starting from the gaseous state and ending with the first human form, that consciousness is involuntary. That means there is no freedom for that consciousness. It has to go through a certain pattern. Whereas in man, there is a certain element of voluntariness. There's a certain element of what we call as free will or free choice, which can either strengthen the grip of the samskaras or even loosen. In other words, there is some kind of an apparent freedom given in the consciousness to a human being to manage the way he has to manage. I am reminded of one aspect which has been very beautifully highlighted in the book called Beams. It's a corollary to this book. After this book was published and many questions arose and the editors wrote to Baba asking for a few more clarifications, and Baba made it into an essay form. Of course, Dr. C.D. Deshmukh assisted Baba in that. In that, one of the questions was, supposing, let's say, I am destined to live up to, say, age 90, but I indulge in gluttony, I indulge in all kinds of unhealthy practices so far as my bodily life is concerned. Then Baba says that in spite of the fact that you were apparently destined to live 90, you can pop off at 70. Conversely, a person has been destined to live only 45 years. He is supposed to die at the age of 45. But he is very concerned about his health, about his eating habits, about his sleeping, about exercising, about thoughts, about everything. Then he may live up to 70 also. So in other words, that flexibility, doability, a voluntary inputs, what we call as a free choice or free will, is apparently given in the human form. So here says, Baba says, unlike the definite cause followed in the process of evolution. In the process of evolution, you have no choice. You are just led like a blind thing, as per whatever the destiny that was created for that one particular apparently separated drop soul at the time of creation. Who am I? So that he is following. Unlike the definite cause followed in the process of evolution, man as man can make use of his consciousness fully and freely. Therefore, the fully gross conscious man, according to the resultant tightening or loosening of his sanskaric bindings, can become fully subtle conscious and thereafter fully mental conscious, sometimes after a few or sometimes after numerous human incarnation. In other words, what we are trying to convey is, it seems that there is a possibility that we can, in a sense, change our destiny. There's another very beautiful sentence in Baba's discourses. If I'm not mistaken, it was on page 330, 31, where again I am repeating words to the effect, paraphrasing. Fate, F-A-T, fate, which means nasib, taqdeer, luck. Fate is a result of man's own actions pursuing him from past lives. And just as it has been caused through past actions, it can be altered, modified, and even undone through actions in the present. That means that kind of liberty is given, and therefore proper understanding and intelligent use of the law of karma can make man master of his own destiny. These are not the exact ones, but words, but it means that. I think the exact words are, therefore, intelligent use of the law of karma can make, no. Words to the effect that if you intelligently understand how the law of karma operates and you work on that, then you can make certain modification, changes, alteration, even undoing the actions of the past. You know, it is somebody has said it, these are not Baba's words, you know, that the goal and the way to the goal should be at the same level. What he explained, the gentleman explained, was that you want to be healthy and you eat rubbish, or you overeat, or you are a glutton. Your goal is to become healthy, but your way to the goal is totally different, so that will not work out. Yeah, I think, yeah. Yeah, Rochit.
So you mean to say that once you become fully conscious of subtle and the mental, you become more conscious of your own self, you become capable of changing your own destiny. So you mean to say,
Yeah.
I'm not clear? Okay.
Yeah, no, you're clear.
Not to him.
once
I
you
couldn't
become
even get it.
conscious,
Sorry?
You're capable of changing your destiny. Once
You're
you're
capable of
That's what I
change-
said.
No, no,
Yes.
I'm asking.
In the discourses,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
page 330,
yes.
331,
but,
you
but
will.
you become fully conscious on 5th or 6th plane. Don't you think that Baba says that you use your law of karma and you become fully conscious, then only you can actually handle.
I'm not able
If
to.
you're- But in the only you become fully conscious only in the sixth plane. So then how
No,
does
no. I'm not very clear. Can you speak a little louder?
I am saying that you're saying once
better.
you become fully conscious,
Fully conscious means what?
subtle and mental conscious, right? Then only you are capable of managing your destiny and
Not
changing.
necessarily. You can. That is where Baba says, you know, that if somehow when his grace descends, you know, he can take you from where you are to where you should belong, or where you should be in a jiffy, in a second. In these planes of consciousness are also illusory. So he can take you from 0 to, you know, 7th plane.
I know he can, but Baba says you can. A man can change his
No,
destiny.
no,
That's
we
what-
can never, according to my understanding, we can never, on our own effort, become one with God or experience God
He's
realization.
not saying that.
I'm not saying to
He's not
become
saying
one with
that.
God. I'm saying that
Can
changing
you convey
my.
what he's saying?
He is telling that when just now we said no, we can change our destiny.
Correct.
The goal and this thing. So
Right.
when you are, according to what he understood, conscious means on the sixth plane.
Consciousness
Means
in the
fully
sixth plane?
conscious.
We have
Because
no.
Baba, you said that you can use law of karma, but you have to become fully conscious of how to use it, right?
Correct.
But like you have to become mentally or subtle conscious to reach to that point that
Not
you can
necessarily.
manage. And
Even at the gross level, we have this discrimination that this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. This is, in other words, from the standpoint of truth or reality, there is no such thing as good or bad. There is an act and there is a consequences to that act. And now once we know that, okay, I always use this terminology that we are all conscious of the harvesting season, of the harvest. Because whatever is coming on the screen of our consciousness, in other words, whatever we are experiencing today is nothing but the fruits of what we have sown in the past. So we are always focused and conscious on the harvesting season. If we become conscious of the sowing season, that act which I am doing now will have its own repercussion at different place. It can happen immediately, it can happen after several years or maybe several lifetimes. So once we shift our focus to sowing good seeds, then we will have good fruits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
It starts
yes,
from
yes,
God.
yes,
It starts
yes.
from the human, because before human stage there is no voluntary act. It is involuntary. That is what Baba is saying. No,
There are natural and non-natural sanskaras. Natural
Unlike-
is automatically you do certain things, whereas we have given discrimination, awareness. So from there, that is why in humans that is why we can achieve God realization for this
no.
particular faculty.
You have brought in something else,
No,
which
but
is.
no, I
See,
am.
natural samskaras are those samskaras which we inherit or amass in the entire evolutionary process, which are, the heirlooms of the past. And once we become human beings, we accumulate and spend what is known as, we do spend natural samskaras also.
Yes.
But accumulate and spend non-natural samskaras. That is what Baba has said, after the human form. And their legacy is of a short period, whereas natural samskaras are very long. So it's, according to me, well nigh impossible to eradicate or balance
We're not
out
talking
the
that
samskaras
language.
qualitatively
We're not
and
talking
quantitatively. Let me speak. Thank you. Quantitatively, you cannot do the. If your question is that you become conscious only on the sixth plane, no. In the very first human form, you have got the discrimination and the discretion. Let him complete. Huh? Okay, Naman.
So I just understood from this discussion is we have to read books like this God Speaks, and we have to understand that there are levels above gross level, and we can straighten our path towards God realization even when we have not achieved any plane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that people who have realized God, there are many. For example, Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, he was not lettered. See, it is not just reading books that will take. There are many other ways. There's an intuition that comes. There's a contact with the master. Sorry?
Bhakti.
There are contact with the master. Ultimately, it is the master. Once we are in the hands of a master who's a real master, which means a perfect master or the avatar, they can help us and guide us. All we have to do is surrender to them and let them handle our life.
No, I'm done.
ये बोल ना.
No, it's done.
आगे answer
Yeah,
आगे.
okay, so-
हाँ. So because we are supposedly lettered or supposedly educated, so we feel that yes, of course, reading has got a lot of meaning. There's no doubt, but there are several pathways to the truth, and this intellectual knowledge, yes, is one of them. But it has no meaning unless and until we actually put it into practice. Like that is what Baba says, that the way to start treading the path is to put into action, put into practice whatever little bit of this so-called spiritual knowledge we have gathered. Only amassing knowledge, intellectually becoming big, has no meaning. The moment you start first of all, you will not get the entire road map, like how we get in GPS. You just click like this, and okay, now the road is going. No, you won't get that. Baba says that the moment you start treading, the moment you put your step, that is the time when you will be shown the next step. We have this electric sensor lights, I'm sure you are aware, that when you enter a certain zone, certain area, the lights will go on. Everything else is dark, only that patch is, and as you move forward, another light, and the piche ka light will go off. They are body sensors or whatever it is, action sensors, motion sensors or whatever. So that is how in spirituality, in my understanding, it works, to put into action, to put into practice whatever little intellectual, spiritual knowledge that we have gathered. So then when you do that, immediately the next step will open up, and the next and the next. And not just gathering and amassing intellectual knowledge.
See, this is very, very, very clear over here when we read now. Therefore, even in the involution between subtle and the mental, Baba says sometimes after a few or sometimes after numerous human reincarnations, the
Some have talk in the
The
mic.
consciousness is नहीं हो रहा है. Consciousness is evolving means it can be so fast and it can take that long also. So it is
In
not.
short, there is some kind of a voluntary, free choice, free will given to you to discriminate and work according to what we feel is best in order to progress us further.
That means there are shortcuts.
Yeah. That means what?
There are shortcuts.
That's what, yes,
There are
I think it was whenever the last session was, we said that on one hand it says 85 lakhs for sure.
84 lakhs.
I'm sorry, 84 lakhs. Why should I add 1 lakh more? 84 lakhs. Huh? And on the other side, Baba is giving this leeway, okay, you can do it. And here Baba says something which is very, very exceptional. In exceptional cases, an instantaneous emancipation, which is freedom, is also possible without involving a single reincarnation.
That is
So
what he
everything
said.
is possible.
No, this is what, by taking his name. We had done the chart yesterday, from human straight you'll go to 2B.
When somebody had asked Baba something which was very highly improbable, and somebody asked Baba whether this is possible. And Baba gave a brilliant reply, again words to the effect, everything is possible in illusion. Or it could be, nothing is impossible in illusion. It means the same thing. So in illusion, everything is possible. So let us not rack our brains.
No, it's not racking, but there is so much of leeway. It is not hard and fast.
Correct.
He's telling in his literature, this is it, but you can also have this.
Not
we
hard
are
and fast, soft and slow. Okay, go ahead. He has
You
a
tell
question.
me.
He has a question.
Hello.
Yeah.
My question was very personal, not for the path of God realization. It was like you're able to change your destiny.
Yes.
On what level? Like when you become fully conscious of your thoughts, then you're able to alter on your destiny, or is it like he had given me an answer that on gross level only by simply
Yes.
just differentiating, you
Read
start
page
making changes. Yeah.
330-331.
By taking an
Discourses.
action.
Wait,
Yeah.
Seventh
on
edition.
the gross plane itself. All of this is in the gross.
That's
Once
I
you
got
are
the
in-
answer
Yeah.
along. That's what I was saying.
Once you're involved, we are in a different realm. It's a different realm.
All right.
But that is more dangerous because the allurements are so intense. Not as we are, we can. However, in order to loosen the bindings through the opposite experiences of duality of illusion, that is pain and pleasure, good and bad, man and woman, strong and weak, etc., on his own, man has to remain conscious of multifarious experiences for 84 lakhs of times through something like 50 crores of sleeps of death. Yet, invariably, on account of the all-pervading grace of God, man becomes subtle and mental conscious and is thus able to cut short, more or less, the stalemate of recurring physical births and deaths.
You can cut short the stalemate of recurring physical births and deaths. Now there's an asterisk there. I tried to figure out in my own limited way the math which Baba has given about 50 crores of sleeps and death, and then I couldn't figure it out. But since I have always been saying that where we cannot understand exactly what it means, you can read the asterisk. We just give it a pass and say, because we do not know. 50 crores is 50 with 7 zeros. So how do you reconcile that? So Erach is giving, I think, the explanation
But that's
that it
right.
includes everything right from the creation. Could be, I don't know. I really don't know. So I don't want to comment
Finally-
on that, but we'll read this. Ask for further clarity.
No. Finally, by the grace of the God-man or the man-God, in far, far less than an instant's flash of time, man becomes fully conscious God and finds that time and space are born of his own eternity and infinitude, in which time and space have no existence at all. Here there is a asterisk.
So time and space are the creation of our
Mind.
own self, Yeah.
Mind.
Yeah. Our own means actually it does not exist. Now, how do we understand this? Because we are trying to analyze everything with our limited human mind. It's beyond us, you know. When you say time does not exist, what does it mean? Or space does not exist, then what is it? What is happening? What is all this? Anyway, okay.
Time and space is a construct of the mind.
That is true, Baba.
Asked for further clarification, A.H.B. Jassawala wrote in reply, the reference to 50 crores of sleeps of death is approximately what one soul has to undergo during the process of evolution of consciousness of forms and of reincarnation.
End of reincarnation. So
With
he's clubbing everything together.
With the help of changes in the media, that is, association with and dissociation from different forms of different species. 84 lakhs of shakings or reincarnations are in human form, but 50 crores of sleeps of death include pre-human forms, associations with and dissociations from media and the experiences of their impressions.
So that is the clarification which Iraj gives for
Man-
Baba's words. Yeah.
Man need not die more times than he can be born. Man is born once with the birth of mind, and man dies once with the annihilation of mind.
That we have done.
As such, there is indeed no reincarnation. It is just a process of crores of sleeps of death for the mind that is born once and that dies once. Birth of mind involves the processes of evolution, reincarnation, and involution. Death of mind is realization of the self.
This is very clear and understandable. All right, now?
10 states of God.
Oh, wow. 1 minute. Naman? We still have?
Yes.
Oh, good. Now we are doing the 10 states of God. Yesterday we just very briefly read through the various stages. Now we will be reading it and going deeper into it. Okay.
10 States of God by A.H.B. Jassawala. The 10 States of God which follows was written by A.H.B. Jassawala under the direct supervision of Meher Baba, describing and interpreting an original diagram, the 10 States of God, devised by Meher Baba, the editors. The 10 principal states of God depicted by Meher Baba.
Will you have to
chart.
give the chart here, chart number 8.
Once again. page
Once again when we
150.
are reading, yeah. Chart number 8. Yesterday also we had given, but we'll have to do it again. Okay, you keep reading the
158.
one opposite page 158.
State 1, God in beyond beyond. State 2, God in beyond substates A, B, C. State 3, God as emanator, sustainer and dissolver. State 4, God as embodied soul. State 5, God as soul in the
God
state
in.
soul in
Go ahead.
the state of evolution. State 6, God as human soul in the state of reincarnation. State 7, God in the state of spiritually advanced souls. State 8, God as the divinely absorbed. State 9, God as liberated incarnate soul. State 10, God as the man God and God man.
So everything is God as God as God as God as. Okay. There's nothing besides God. Okay. Now we'll start the reading of the 10 states of God, which is part 9 on page number 159.
The pages of this chapter are built around the diagram depicting the 10 states of God. This diagram has been given by Meher Baba himself. It is a gem from the fathomless treasure of his supreme gnosis. The spiritual terms of this diagram have been linked up with the most generally accepted Sufi, Vedantic, and Christian mystical equivalents.
And on the chart, Baba, it is mentioned Vedantic and near Vedantic terms.
If we were to take a bird's eye view of this diagram, we should find that it depicts what is really the downward journey of the oversoul to the lowest point of devolution as a man, insan, jivatma, and its upward journey again through the unfolding planes of consciousness back to the original source, first as the divinely absorbed Madzub e Kamil, and culminating finally in the perfect man, Insan e Kamil, Shiv Atma. The 10 different states of God are principal stages on this journey, a journey in which unconscious God becomes conscious man in order to become conscious God. Although these states of God are depicted as apparently distinct from one another, they are, in effect, 10 aspects of the one God who is and will always remain one. The descent and ascent of the oversoul is in imagination only, and with the cessation of imagination comes the realization with full consciousness for the individual soul that God alone exists and that anything and everything else which appears to exist is but his shadow.
I
Mere-
don't think this requires any explanation. Basically, we have done this earlier also.
Meher Baba's gnosis upholds without equivocation both
Means without any doubt, unequivocally.
both the theory of identityism, Wahadat ul Wujud, and the theory of Advaitism. In the chart, The 10 States of God by Meher Baba, it is made clear that it is God alone who plays the different roles, real and imaginary. The beginning is God and the end is God. The intermediary stages cannot but be God. The spiritual dictum of Islamic theology is Huwal Awwal, Huwal Akhir, Huwal Zahir, Huwal Batin. He is the first, He is the last, He is the external, He is the internal. Here there is a
Yeah, we'll finish this and then go.
Maulana Shabistari in Gulshan-e-Raz says, Gar andar Ahmad awwal hum bidar shud, agar che dar ma'ad az dar bidar shud. He returns to the door from which he first came out, although in his journey he went from door to door. We shall now try to describe concisely each one of these 10 states of God as explained by Meher Baba.
So once again, an apology for mispronouncing these words. And now we have
Supplement 258,
supplement,
page 258.
which is, I suppose, fairly long and fairly, I mean, using much of the Sufi terminologies, which I would perhaps not venture to explain. So, but because at the beginning of the session, the very first time, we said that Baba wanted us to read God Speaks from cover to cover. We will attempt at reading it, even at the cost of not being able to understand certain aspects of it. So now we are on page number
58.
258, where we have this Tawhid, no? Tawhid. As I said,
Supplement 34.
as I said, it runs into several pages. Perhaps we may not be able to complete this supplement today. And I would not, as I said, venture, my God, so many, to even explain. So let's see, Soumya will have to read it out because we said we are reading. There is much of the Sufi terminologies involved. Tawhid, or the unitary state of God.
The principle involving Tawhid, or the unitary state of God, is indisputable. It is the basic foundation of all known religions and the goal of spiritual discipline in both Sufism and Vedanta. To accept Tawhid in theory is the privilege of the masses, but to indulge in research thereof is the speciality of the select few. It is both easy and difficult. Tawhid is seemingly so easy that it is talked about universally on pulpit and platform, and yet it is so difficult of achievement that the best of efforts therein yield nothing but stupefaction and bewilderment.
Okay, now just wanted to give some meanings to the pulpit is the platform where from the preachers preach spirituality, sermons are given. The second word which may require clarification is stupefaction.
Huh?
Is
Stupefaction.
yeah.
Stupefaction.
Okay, is nothing but stupidity, insensibility. And the third one is bewilderment, which is being perplexed or confusing. Okay.
The unity of God in its transcendent aspect is the Tawhid
Transcending the ordinary, yeah. Tawhid
Tanzihi,
Tanzihi.
absolute oneness of Sufism and the Advaita of Vedanta. The problem of Tawhid presents multifarious aspects, as is exemplified by the old story of several blind people examining an elephant. Each touched a different part of the creature and formed a different opinion. Individual approach to the subject is relatively quite true and unchallengeable. And yet, the elephant as a whole is something quite different and ununderstandable for the blind. The following are a few utterances of eminent Sufis concerning Tawhid and the aspects thereof which appeal
So
to them.
what the eminent Sufis have to say
There's,
about this
there's an
topic?
asterisk.
Yeah.
The apparent contradictions in the words of Sufis are merely due to limitations of the means to express the experienced truths and to describe the realized truth in different contexts, under different circumstances, and from different points of view that always go together in a single experience or realization as a whole. Meher Baba says that such wordy differences do not contradict but complement the expressions of experienced and realized truths which underline such contradictions. Explanations in this respect, such as have already been given in preceding pages, should therefore be always borne in mind, namely, on page 193, the approach to truth is individual, and so, in the matter of details, much depends upon one's spiritual tendency, physical aptitude, and external circumstances.
Page 198.
Page 198. 1,000 seekers may be enjoying as many experiences, yet the path of gnosis is only one. Page 207. In spite of different aspects of the experiences of the experience, all aspects are experienced together at the same time. Page 228. On the one hand, more details confuse one, and less details explain things less. This gives rise to a variety of terms and expressions for use from different viewpoints and in different contexts. In the absence of actual experience, descriptions of the same one thing often sound contradictory. But in the light of relative experiences or the final realization of truth, these very contradictions prove to be really complementary expressions about the same one truth.
How much time do we have? Are we through?
No. What's wrong?
I thought he said time is over. All right. So here, this is a very beautiful sentence. I want to repeat this. On the one hand, more details confuse one more, and less details explain things less. This gives rise to a variety of terms and expressions for use from different viewpoints and in different contexts. This is important. In the absence of actual experience, descriptions of the same one thing often sound contradictory. But in the light of the relative experiences of the final realization of truth, these very contradictions prove to be really complementary expressions about the same one truth. In other words, each one tries to explain their experiences of the same truth depending upon their own subjectivity. It's subjective mind which colors the same truth with their own experiences. All right, go ahead.
Tawhid is that reality.
Now,
in-
this is somebody, now Baba is saying that the few utterances of eminent Sufis concerning Tawhid. So, one after the other, what others have to say.
Tawhid is that reality in which the impressions, naqsh, are wiped out. Nukush are wiped out, and knowledge appears, and God remains as immaculate and pure as he was before. Junaid of Baghdad. Tawhid is the knowledge of God, and this knowledge enables the Gnostic to differentiate between the original, Kadim, and the contingent, Hadas, being. The transcendent state of Tawhid involves the denial of Tawhid, Junaid of Baghdad. Tawhid is the effacement of the lover in the attributes of the beloved, Jahangir Shamnani. Tawhid has two aspects. One is the state, and the other is the description of it. The descriptive aspect of Tawhid belongs to the worldly mission of the prophets, and the state thereof involves the infinite and boundless ocean. The descriptive aspect depends on the instrumentality of speech, sight, hearing, and cognition, and all of these require separate confirmation. To confirm on the basis of extraneous proofs is to suggest duality, and Tawhid is free of all tinge of duality. Faith in a man walks through the crowded thoroughfare of duality, and this stage cannot altogether be dispensed with. Descriptive Tawhid is like a lamp, while Tawhid in itself and by itself is the sun. When the sun appears, the light of the lamp vanishes into nothingness. Descriptive Tawhid is changeable, while the state of Tawhid is immutable and eternal.
Immutable, unchangeable, unalterable.
The words uttered by the tongue are overruled by the heart. When one on the spiritual journey occupies the station of the heart, the tongue becomes defunct and mute. Later on, the heart too is overridden by the spirit, Jan, and at this stage, the wayfarer talks to him.
Wayfarer.
This talk is not in relation to the essence, but in relation to its attribute. The attribute changes and not the essence, Ayn. The sun warms up the water whereby the attribute is changed, but not the water. Thus, the very attempt to affirm Tawhid is to deteriorate the pristine purity of Tawhid. Asbat ut Tawhid fasidun fit Tawhid. Tawhid wails for the Unitarian, Mawahid, the beauty of the absolute oneness, Jamal-e-Ahadiyat. Tawhid on that account is suspect because you desire it from yourself. One who writes about Tawhid is a mulhid, rationalist. One who points towards it is a dualist. One who infers it is an idolater. One who talks about it is irresponsible. One who is silent about it is ignorant. One who thinks that he has realized it is self-deluded. One who imagines its nearness is distant from it. One who weighs it with intellect and forms ideas thereof is indulging in make-believe. And one who finds it without seeking is the lost one. Abu Bakr Shibli. Tawhid, if spoken of in relation to absolutism, tanzihi, is to qualify it and to refer to it as qualified. Tasbih is to make it limited and finite. To equilibrate the two extremes is, however, perfect and just what is desirable. Muhyiddin ibn Arabi. Tawhid is essentially forgetfulness of Tawhid. Those returning to normal consciousness must needs have some work on the material plane. Hence, Tawhid may be likened to a creditor that can never be adequately and fully paid off in life. Kuduntul Kubra. Tawhid, the Unitarian stage of God, therefore admits of no language, as it is that transcendent state, there is none to whom to address oneself. The Sufis have classified Tawhid into 5 main categories in keeping with or connoting the different stages of man's spiritual unfoldment. They are known as Tawhid-e-Akhwali, the verbal unity of God; Tawhid-e-Af'ali, the active unity of God; Tawhid-e-Ahwali, the feeling unity of God; Tawhid-e-Sifati, unity of God in attributes; Tawhid-e-Zati, unity of God in essence. Number 1, Tawhid-e-Akwali belongs to the majority of mankind who believe in any one prophet avatar and have faith in his message. At this stage, mere verbal acceptance of God or the unity of God and the performance of duties pertaining thereto enjoined by the lawgiver are considered enough as a preparation for the forthcoming stages of spiritual life. This is known as Tawhid-e-Shariat. Number 2, Tawhid-e-Af'ali concerns those who have actually been initiated into the path. The expression of the unity of God with such initiates of the subtle sphere, Alam-e-Malakut, simulates intrinsically the life of the pure souls, the angels. At this stage, the spiritual conviction engendered within is that behind everything good or bad is the motivating power of God. Number 3, Tawhid-e-Ahwali dawns on those advanced souls of the 5th plane in the mental sphere. At this stage, the soul finds itself invested with direct radiation of divinity and consciously or unconsciously gives immense help to others in the subtle and gross spheres. Number 4, Tawhid-e-Sifati belongs to the 6th plane in the same sphere, mental. All the aspects of materiality from the gross and subtlety from the subtle planes still clinging to the soul are completely removed and dissolved like the luster of stars getting dissipated before the sun. Both stage 3 and 4 Tawhid belong to the same mental sphere, Alam-e-Jabrut, and all the 3, number 2, that is Tawhid-e-Akhwali, 2, 3 and 4 are also collectively known as Tawhid-e-Tariqat. Number 5, Tawhid-e-Zati is God realization in the fifth real sphere of Hakikat, which includes the different stages or aspects of the Marifat-e-Hakikat, namely Halat-e-Muhammadi in the state of Lahut and Hakikat-e-Muhammadi in the state of Hahut of the sphere of reality. The Sufis are unanimous on the point that amongst the various aspects inherent in the realization or Tawhid-e-Zati, the most perfect one is the accentuation of the difference of the ubudiyat, servantship between man and God. This spiritual fact the Church has misconstrued and misapplied in adducing that man is man and God is God, and that man can never become God, nor God ever devolve into man. The truth underlying the situation, however, is that after the realization of Tawhid-e-Zati, the emphasis on ubudiyat, servantship, connotes the third journey of the saliks called Sayr-e-Ma-Allah, the return of normal consciousness with God. The varying stages and aspects of Tawhid is discussed above as discussed above are given below in tabular form.
Now
Stage
there's a table here. If you want, you can show it on the screen, which will analyze. It is on page number 262. Stages, aspects, and the spheres. Page number 262. Go ahead.
Tawhid Akwali, Waqif, gross conscious. That is the aspect, and the sphere is Alam Nasut, first sphere. Tawhid stage, Tawhid Afali, Wasif, praiser, aspect, and the sphere is Alam Malakut, second sphere. The stage Tawhid Ahwali is Arif, knower, and the sphere is Alam Jabrut, third sphere, and Tawhid Sifati is also same Ashik, lover, which sphere is Alam Jabrut. Tawhid hai Zati, number 1 Ashiko Mashuk, lover and beloved in one. Number 2 Ashik, lover, and Mashuk, beloved, simultaneously. The sphere of the first is Alam Lahut, and the second is Alam Hahut.
1 minute before we start.
Fifth.
Again, no, 1 minute. We still have only 3 minutes. I think we stop here because again there's a long discussion. All right, so any questions? No questions on Tawhid? So simple it is. Huh? It's Tawhid.
Because this Tawhid.
The basic, Baba has made it so composite that people from all walks of life, from all religions and all following of certain pattern, they will be able to understand. Because who knows, from Baba had said that this book would be really taken up by majority of humanity in times to come, where he has really brought together, as Baba says, I have come to bring all religions and cults like beads on one string. So he's putting it all in one string, which some may be able to follow this, especially those following Sufism would be able to really appreciate and get knowledge from here, whereas some who are on the Vedantic thought will get it from some other portion of God speaks. So then we end this session number 33 today, and hopefully meet as soon as possible to continue with more sessions. Thank you, Baba. Thanks to all of you. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Jai Baba. Thank you.